What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here. So ignore the face and the hair, and yeah, I realize it looked very different without any facial hair at all. Don't worry, it'll grow back. Don't be scared. Just if you don't want to look at the screen, that's fine. Just listen to my voice. I know that's not very pleasant either, but it'll be okay. But here we are. 5-1 comfortable win midweek over Southampton. A lot of changes as well, so a lot of players rested for Tottenham in the weekend. Madueke is doing some great stuff here. It's really a good feeling to look at a game and think to myself, we didn't really play that well, and we still come out 5-1 winners. I mean, it just shows that we have a lot of quality in this team, so even if we're not at our best, even if we didn't really get out of first gear today, we can handle this Southampton team no problem. And it is kind of a damning indictment to look at Southampton and go, we didn't really play well, and we didn't have a lot of our first teamers on the pitch, and we still rocked up to your place and comfortably won 5-1. But that's kind of where they are right now. I fully expect them, unless Russell Martin either changes how he's playing right now, or unless they just get rid of him and bring in somebody who can take the players that they have, which honestly, looking at the players they do have, there's not a whole lot of quality there, so I don't know. But they clearly need to change because the way they're playing, it's not working. They are easily the worst team in the Premier League right now. There's no competition on that. So with that being said, I know that kind of sounds like what a lot of us Chelsea fans complain about with the media, where they give more credit to the other team being bad than us being good. But if I'm being honest, that's kind of how it felt today, because I wasn't, not that I wasn't happy that we were winning, but it didn't feel comfortable to me. Like, even when we were 3-1 up and they were down to 10 men, it still didn't really feel comfortable because it started to look similar to what we saw in the past. When you think about like Potter's season, when you think about like Lampard's season as well, there's that feeling of we are dominating this match, we are creating all these chances, and we're not finishing them. And then all of a sudden they go down the other side and they look dangerous. And there was just that sense in my head. I was worried that if they get that second goal, the momentum could easily shift. Now, granted, I think we have seen enough from this team this season to see that our mentality is not as weak as it was last season. Last season, there was definitely a sense that if we gave up a goal when we were up by 2, the mentality would drop a little bit, and there's a very good chance that we could let a team back in. This season, it does feel like when we give up that goal, there's not necessarily a drop. The mentality doesn't seem to drop as much, if at all. And that's a good feeling to have. And I think that's fully credit to Madueke for what he's done, the confidence that he's instilling in this group. And so, yeah, if we had given up the second goal, make it 3-2, I don't necessarily think we definitely would have dropped points here. But there is still that concern. In the way we're playing, there was still that concern that that could possibly happen. And some of it is some of the players out there, and I'll talk about them when I get to that. But I do think just the overall play today felt slower. It felt a little bit more lackadaisical at times, for lack of a better word. It just was not the same high intensity, knocking the ball around, keeping it moving, high press whenever they have it. It kind of felt like everybody was going 50 to 75% for the most part. There were a couple times we turned it up and actually went at them full force, but it was very rarely today. And maybe that was part of the plan. Some of these guys that are going to be playing on the weekend don't go full force today. And who knows, maybe that was part of the plan. Maybe the idea was we kind of keep ourselves in first gear, just kind of knocking it around, very comfortable. And then if we need to step it up, we have the energy to, because we're not using up a whole lot of energy the way we're playing today. But it definitely did feel like there's a good chance we could have easily won this game by a lot more. And I've watched a couple reactions, and everybody kind of feels the same way. It feels like this should have been a lot more comprehensive of a victory because of all the chances we did create and the fact that we still were not playing well. It feels like if we had just gotten out of first gear, if we had focused a little bit more on our finishing today, this game could have been probably one of the biggest away wins in Premier League history. But for whatever reason, a couple players, they didn't have their finishing boots today. And like I said, it kind of felt a little easy today. Like we were taking it easy, knocking it around comfortably, didn't really press hard. We just sort of put some players up there. Basically, we were just sort of there, and if they made a mistake, we would step in, but we weren't really forcing mistakes like what we did against Villa. But with that being said, before we get to individuals, first we'll focus on the one big talking point, and that is, of course, the red card. For me personally, it is soft. It is kind of weak when you really look at it. Cucurella goes down very easily. In my opinion, pulling hair should not be a part of the game. I liken it. I know it's a very different thing when you think about it, but I liken it to biting. When you look at like when Suarez bit people, that's weird. That is not something that belongs in the game. You bite your opponent, that's weird. You shouldn't be doing that. Pulling hair? First of all, it's kind of childish when you really think about when did you pull hair? Well, as a kid. Why are we doing this as adults? Why are you pulling somebody's hair as an adult? Like that to me, it's childish, but it just doesn't belong in the game. You could pull somebody's jersey, you could give them a little tug, that's fine because, yeah, it's part of the game. Everybody kind of pulls on each other to sort of pull them back to get them behind you or to get in front of them. You pull on them a little bit. To pull their hair, though, like that is a conscious, I'm going to grab up and pull on your hair. To me, that there's no reason to be doing that. There's no logical reason to pull somebody's hair. So the fact that I can't remember exactly who it was that did it for Tottenham 2 years ago on Cucurella, the fact that that wasn't given a red card, I was shocked that day. This one, I know it's soft. I think it's worthy of a red, though. It's not something that should be in the game. There are certain things that should not be in the game, and pulling hair, in my opinion, is one of them. But moving into individuals, so first of all, let's start with Jorgensen in goal. Obviously, I think a lot of us were surprised to see him start since Sanchez has been the Premier League keeper, but I'm glad that Madueke gave him a chance, and I thought he did well with that chance. He made a lot of good saves. I thought his passing, there was one at the beginning of the first half that was a little scary, kind of like a floated ball to the left side. It was very dangerous, and it put us under pressure, but after that, mostly kept it nice and comfortable, didn't make any mistakes. So definitely a lot better than Sanchez in that regard. But obviously Sanchez is still the starter. Madueke even confirmed that in the post-match press conference. So I think for Jorgensen, it's not so much about proving himself. It's more so about getting that experience under his belt at Chelsea. Even if it's something as simple as playing some of these Conference League matches where he doesn't really have a whole lot to do, it's still giving him that experience, and so he's not put under constant pressure like he would be in the Premier League. So I think it's a little bit for his sake as well that he's not getting a starting spot over Sanchez, even though based on what we've seen, he probably would give us a little bit more than Sanchez does at the moment. But I think Sanchez, because he has that Premier League experience, I think that's why Madueke is using him at the moment. It's just that feeling of he's played in this league before. He's somebody as well that if he makes a mistake, you don't feel like he's just going to lose confidence in himself. I think Jorgensen is young enough, he might. He might start to lose confidence in himself. He might start to drop off because of that. But who knows? I don't know exactly what Madueke's thinking. But yeah, Jorgensen, good game today. Into the defense, this is probably where I'm going to have the most controversial takes, because from what I've been seeing, a lot of people have been praising everybody around the pitch, and I'm a little bit more critical than that, so I'm actually going to talk about the bad stuff that I saw. Starting with Gusto. A lot of people praising Gusto. He was actually one of the man of the match contenders that I saw on Twitter. And I will say, I don't see that. I was not very impressed with him today. I know he got an assist, and he did look better in the second half whenever he was almost playing a right back that was able to get up and help out on the right wing. I think that position looks a lot more natural for him than coming inside as either an inverted fullback, or sometimes he's getting up into the attack in like an 8 position. But I think the other thing too is he was not really needed as much defensively in the second half because Southampton's attacks were a lot less frequent. Defensively, he looks really shaky this season. And the weird thing about that is I don't remember him looking shaky last season. But yeah, today he was pretty rough. I mean, getting beat, getting turned way too easily, getting pulled out of position. One-on-one defending wasn't really that good either. I thought today he looked very susceptible defensively. And that's something that's new to his game for this season. So I don't know where he's dropped off or why he's dropped off there. But that was my big issue with him today. It's funny because my issue with him so far this season has been him on the ball. He's not really been good enough. I feel like he's lacked some quality when we've needed him to have that quality in the final third, which, I mean, he's a fullback, so I guess you shouldn't expect him to, but we've needed him to because he's gotten himself in some good positions. But I thought today on the ball, he did look a little bit better in the second half. But yeah, defensively, I feel like it was just way too easy to get past him today. A lot of their most dangerous chances came down our right side, and it was either going past Gusto or getting in behind him. So yeah, for me, I did not see the great game that Gusto had that everybody else saw. Disasi as well, I feel like the goal kind of bumped him up in some people's ratings because he was also up for man of the match today for some reason. But yeah, defensively, he also looks very susceptible. And that's nothing new. We've seen that even in the Conference League, even against teams that are probably not nowhere near Premier League level, he looks susceptible in those matches. So it's not surprising at all that today he looked very susceptible. I will say I think the change in the second half, moving him out to the left side with Tosin being the one that sits a bit deeper, I think that worked out better because I just don't think Disasi reads the game well enough to be that deeper defender whenever we switch to the back three. So I think putting Tosin back there, he's a little bit more experienced. I'll talk about him in a second, but I do think he's a better defender than Disasi is. So I think it allowed Disasi to not have so much pressure on him, and he was out on the left instead. I mean, obviously, second half, we weren't really putting under that much pressure anyway, but I do think it helped Disasi not be the focal point as much as he was in the first half, because when he is the focal point, either defending or on the ball, I feel like that's when he really gets exposed for the lack of quality, unfortunately. And then Tosin, I will say I was pretty disappointed because I've been singing his praises. I thought he's looked pretty good in the Conference League. I thought he looked like our second best defender behind Colwill. I thought he should be starting over Fofana. And today, honestly, wasn't great. I mean, he looked a bit better in the second half when he was playing a bit deeper, but the first goal is kind of on him. I mean, it's a little bit of everywhere. It's a little bit of Fernandez, a little bit of Gusto. But at the end of it all, he needs to do his job. He needs to make sure he doesn't turn off. And he did. And it allows the Southampton player to come in and poke it from him behind him. And he's completely unaware of what's going on behind him. And that's the type of stuff that I expect from Badiashile or from Fofana or from Disasi. And I've not really seen that from him too much this season. So to see that, it was pretty disappointing. And overall, I mean, the defense in general looked very shaky and very open. So it's not like I can sit here and say, oh, well, it was just that one moment from him. There were several where it felt like he and Disasi and Gusto, and sometimes Cucurella as well, they were very all over the place. And I know this is not the typical back four that they play with in the Conference League, so maybe there is a little bit of organizational issues because of that, because they're not used to playing in this way. But it still feels like, again, for him, he is the most experienced defender. He's played for Fulham. He played in the Premier League. He should have that experience, and he should be able to communicate with everybody else around him to make sure we're not having these types of gaps in our back line. But he's not doing that. And it feels like we were very open today because there was so much disorganization back there. And I can't say it's solely his fault because obviously everybody else is just as disorganized, but I do think he's probably the most responsible when it comes to, again, you're the most experienced. You should probably be the one that is communicating with everybody else around you. And then Cucurella on the left side, I thought he was okay. I've seen better performances from him this season. First half was definitely not good. I think he was a little too weak defensively. First half for me is where he probably had his worst part of the performance. It was just way too easy to pass around him to get in behind him. It felt like he was kind of chasing shadows and wasn't really aware of what was going on around him. Second half, he did look a little bit better, but I thought he was also getting down the line a lot more. And I think that's where he feels a lot more comfortable whenever he can get up and down the line and doesn't have to stay back as much to defend. But then getting into the midfield, Caicedo and Fernandez, I do think for Fernandez, this is showing that he's not defensively capable of being one of those two holding center mids. I think he's much more comfortable whenever he's able to play further forward. He can come back and he can put in a challenge occasionally, but relying on him as one of the two defensive mids, I don't think is a good option. And today kind of showed. There were too many moments where our midfield was open, and I mean, the goal comes from him putting in a bad defensive challenge in our own box. So I really think this showed we need somebody else in there, whether it's an inverted fullback, whether it's Lavia, we need somebody else in there with Caicedo to help do the defensive duty, not Fernandez. As much as I think he's doing a really good job going forward right now and his passes look really good going forward, I think defensively, if you're not having one of your fullbacks invert and work alongside Caicedo, I think you need to have Caicedo and Lavia both in there. Because I do think for Caicedo, he is a good player, but he can't do it all on his own. I think he does a lot of good defensive work, but he still needs another defensive mid in there that he can rely on. And if that person is Fernandez, we're going to lack a bit of solidity in the midfield because Fernandez's defensive side of his game is just really not that good, unfortunately. So I do think the games where we don't need to rely on Fernandez defensively, I think those are going to be our better games. At least the defensive side of our game, I think we're more likely to keep a clean sheet if we have two solid defensive mids in there over having Fernandez and Caicedo, because we just lack something in there. But as far as Caicedo today, I mean, I thought he looked pretty good. Not at his best either. I think everybody was playing a little slower today, but I still think he did enough to really keep Southampton quiet for the most part whenever they were trying to break out. It's only occasionally that they managed to get past him, and most of the time those were going down the side, so he wasn't even really involved. They would sort of go around him instead of try to go through him. But getting into the three and behind the striker, first of all, Madueke on the right. I know I'm going to piss some people off with this one because I know a lot of people like him. I didn't like his performance tonight. And I know he got the goal, and it was a well-taken goal. But first of all, I'm going to talk about the missed chances because his finishing's got to be better. I mean, he had so many easy chances to put away. If he just takes a second, picks his head up, sees where the keeper is, place it in there. Just a little bit of placement, and it would have been fine. But instead, what does he do? Head down, takes a shot, hits the keeper. So many times. He had so many opportunities to put the game away, and he didn't take any of them. And he's not the only one, but for me, the amount of chances he had that was basically a one-on-one with the keeper that he wasted, it's a little frustrating because we have so many chances to put it away. It reminds me of the Nottingham Forest match when he had several chances to either put in a good shot or put in a good cross, probably would have led to a goal, and he wasted all these chances, and then he scores. Everybody's talking about how great Madueke was. We were only in that position where he had to save us or save the point for us because he wasted so many chances in the first half. It's another situation where if we hadn't gotten that fourth and fifth goal and they'd all of a sudden come back into the game with a second goal and now all of a sudden they're pushing us for a third, I would look at Madueke and go, this is on you. This is because you didn't bury any of your 4 or 5 one-on-one chances. Yes, we have Felix missing the free header. That's a bad one. Yes, we have a couple of maybe should have done better from Palmer or Nkuku, but these were one-on-one chances with the keeper where it basically falls to you and there's no pressure on. All you have to do is just miss the keeper and it probably goes in. And he consistently hit the keeper every time. And that just shows a lack of composure and quality there that you can't find a way to put it around him. At least Felix, he's missing the target. That means he's at least trying to place it away from anybody, from hitting anybody. For you, you're putting it right at the keeper every time. And it's as simple as just take a second, see where the keeper is, see where the open spots in the goal are, and try to find those spots. I mean, you look at the one Palmer put off the post, it comes from he gives the keeper the eyes, keeper goes down to his right, he puts it on his left. Keeper does a good job of staying at least somewhat up and getting a hand to it. For Madueke, there was no faking him out. There was no, oh, the keeper did well there. It was just all right at him. He just had to come out, make himself big, and then Madueke did the rest for him. It was just very blatant that Madueke just had no composure tonight. And on top of that, I will say his overall performance was pretty lackluster. There were several moments where I know he did a good job pressing for the second goal to set up Nkuku, but his overall pressing game was not really great tonight. If you look at it on the whole, there were several moments where I feel like if he had just put forth a little bit more effort, he could have easily poked the ball away, or he could have made the defender make a mistake. But there were several times where I'm watching him going, he's just walking right now. He's not really in this. And he's one, for me, he should be working hard tonight. For Palmer, I can understand him not putting forth a full performance because obviously he's got a game this Sunday. Madueke, you're not playing this Sunday. And you're not working hard enough to put yourself back in contention for Sunday either. So what are you doing? You're just out there chilling? Because you're not really showing that you want to get back into the first team. Because right now, Sancho and Neto, they're working their butts off. They're doing well. They're keeping you out of that first team. This was your chance to step up and say, hey, look, coach, this is what I can do. Against a weakened Southampton team, you could have put 4 or 5 in. Look at the Wolves game. That hat trick, everybody's praising Madueke to no end because of that game. This could have been another Wolves game for him to put him back in contention for the starting 11. But instead, he doesn't take his chances, kind of walks around the field for, I would say, 25% of the game. That to me does not scream, I want to win my place back. That screams, I'm fine. I'm fine just cruising in the Conference League, just chilling. Who cares? And to me, it's a little disappointing. I'm not saying I want there to be some sort of issue where players are getting mad that they're not playing, but at the same time, I want to see that players are fighting for their spots. I look at Felix, I even look at Nkuku, I feel like they're trying to fight to get into that first team. Obviously they're being kept out by really good players, but it seems like they still want to push. So if there is a chance that one of them, whether it's Jackson, whether it's Palmer, starts to drop off, or maybe has a few games where they're not playing well, maybe they're injured, maybe they're just not feeling it, they're going to be the first names on the team sheet to come in because they're both working hard to try to get themselves back in there. For Madueke, it doesn't feel like he cares. And I'll say I'm a little disappointed by that. As much as I'm not a big fan of his selfishness, I still feel like there were moments whenever you could see he's got enough quality to really make this team better if he can just work on the decision-making in the final third. Now I just feel like I don't want him near the first team because he doesn't seem like he wants to be there. So anyway, sorry for the little bit of a rant, but I was just really frustrated with that tonight. And of course, he's going to get a lot of praise for the goal. I would prefer to have somebody in my team that's actually going to be fighting for his spot back. But on to Palmer, like I said, it kind of felt like he wasn't really pushing himself tonight. I've definitely seen better performances from him, and it is funny just seeing the reaction after he taps in Nkuku's goal. There's something funny about that to me, and you could tell Nkuku didn't really seem to mind. They were all smiles afterwards. So there's definitely a good team feeling. But yeah, for Palmer, I mean, a lot of it was just him basically working alongside Felix in there, the quality that the two of them have to keep the ball moving. I would say overall, he did what we needed him to do. He provided a bit of quality. He provided a bit of the comfortability on the ball to keep possession and keep it moving. He does that very well. And I'm glad he didn't, deal with any rough challenges because there was a concern for me tonight about that. But yeah, I think he kept himself fit for Sunday, which is probably what we needed him to do. Felix, I thought, played pretty well. Again, yes, finishing definitely needs to improve, but his quality on the ball and his work rate defensively, I cannot say enough how much I value that, because it's something with Jackson last season. A lot of people were just absolutely blazing him because of his finishing. And I keep watching him play, and I'm just thinking, but he's doing so much outside of that so well. There's so many other things to his game that he's providing us that are making us dangerous. I look at Felix, and I kind of see the same thing. I think there's a lot of stuff that he does off the ball that makes us very dangerous. He works to win it back. He's constantly at them. He's just so much energy, just buzzing around up there. And he's got good quality on the ball. It's just his finishing needs to improve. But even then, his passing and his assisting can be just as good. So I think there are definitely elements to his game that make him very valuable to have. And I think anybody that's talking bad about him and saying that he's worthless, saying that he's not helping us and that they don't want him in the team because of his finishing, I got to say that's a pretty naive way to look at it. And that's just from a couple of the videos that I've watched. People talk about Felix as if he's not a good option for us. I think he is a good option. And I fully think give him some more time, give him some more trust as well. I do think we'll start to see the finishing come from him too. Obviously, the big question is going to be, because him and Palmer both play in behind the striker, how often can you play like this? How often can you play where both of them are in there behind a striker? Because it doesn't feel like it would work for every single match. So that's about the only problem he's going to have, is just him and Palmer both playing in that position. And then finally, Nkuku, I thought he played pretty well. Maybe needed a little bit more from him on the press. That's where I did think Jackson probably would have been a better option tonight, because his pressing has been immense so far this season. And there were a couple of times where it felt like maybe Nkuku could go a little bit harder. There was one pass across from the keeper where it felt like Nkuku was only maybe a yard or two away. If he had just had that little burst of energy, he probably could have gotten there and poked it away. But I thought overall his game tonight looked pretty good. Obviously gets himself a goal and maybe could have had himself a second if not for Palmer. So I think it's a good step forward for him. I still don't think he is a true 9, and I think if we can get in a better backup striker for Jackson, I think that would be a good thing. But I do think Nkuku is good to have, and I think he's a good option to keep at the club too. So I definitely would not say look to get rid of him in place of a secondary striker to back up Jackson. But I do think he needs to be playing in behind a striker. I do think that's a better position for him, or even maybe coming in off of the side, kind of what Felix is doing right now with Palmer as well. I think just that feeling of having somebody who can come in from the wings and maybe open up space for a wing back to get out there, I think that's a good option, and Maresca's using that well. So I think that could be another possibility for him to look at too. So I guess honestly, the best thing to do if you do bring in a secondary striker in either in January or in the summer, it would be more so looking to move on somebody like Madueke, who's your sort of your third or fourth left wing option at this point. And I know that sounds harsh, but I still don't really think Madueke's bringing enough to us right now. But as far as the subs that came on, obviously most of them were just giving some guys from the secondary team some minutes and resting some of the guys that are probably going to play in the weekend, like Palmer, like Cucurella. But first, Dewsbury-Hall and Vega came on. I thought both of them did okay. I mean, Dewsbury-Hall, he's just a hard worker, but I don't see a whole lot of quality there, and that's kind of what we got from him in this match. I feel like he's a good one to have for legs because I know I've made this comparison before, but he's similar to Gallagher in that way, where he's very good pressing off the ball. I just think Gallagher provided us a bit more on the ball. Obviously, I've talked about that before, but won't bring that back up again. And then Vega, I thought he had a couple of decent moments, but overall didn't really see too much from him. And I think these are the types of games where I do want to start to see him a bit more, because we've seen him play pretty well in the Conference League. He looks good in that inverted fullback role. I think he can play it very well, but we haven't really seen that from him when it comes to Premier League level. We've not really seen him go up against teams like Southampton, like, when you think about this one, the Newcastle match, the couple of times he showed up earlier this season, it always felt like he was a little bit off the pace to me. So I would like to see him maybe get a little bit more accustomed to this pace, and maybe he will be able to make that step soon. I think he's got enough quality. He should be able to make that step up soon enough. But definitely in this match, it kind of felt like he was just there for legs, and I don't feel like he really took much out of this opportunity. And then the final sub to talk about, which is of course the most important sub to talk about, is Sancho coming on and getting himself the first Chelsea goal, which is big. It's a big moment for him, and it's a great feeling too, because I talked about the concern about his attitude and all that, and just seeing him score, seeing how happy he looks, seeing him tap the badge as he runs over to the sideline, seeing him pull out a little Man U sticker and like ripping it up, throwing it on the ground, stomping it in. It was a great feeling, and it just makes me so happy that we've managed to take a player that I think has good quality to him. We just need to continue to see that quality grow, and I'm sure we will. He seems like he really is enjoying himself, and he does seem like the type of player that the more he enjoys himself, the better his performances will become. So hopefully we'll see that continue to grow as the season goes along. But that being said, that's about it for this one. Looking ahead to the weekend, obviously it's a big match, Tottenham away. It's one of those matches where it is probably our toughest match in this current run that we're in, and we don't really know what to expect. We could get the Tottenham that showed up and battered Man City 4-0. We could get the Tottenham that lost to Ipswich a couple weeks ago. You really never know what to expect, but I will say this is a match that I really do want to win. I know it's going to be tough, and I know it's not going to be a game where we just rock up and batter them, but I kind of want to go batter them. I don't know, just something about the way Spurs have been discussed this season. Every time they have a good performance, people are talking about Ange as if he's the second coming. And I don't know, something about it just feels very bizarre, because you always just know, no, they're Spurs. They're going to have a good performance, and then they'll probably drop off, and then they might have a bad performance, but then the next match they'll be great. So you never really know what to expect, but you do know that they're not really there to be taken seriously. They're not really a club that are looking to push for a title, because they're not there. I kind of feel like this is a game where a lot of people are talking about us as if we're title contenders. This will be a game to show whether or not we have any sort of conversation. I think if we go and if we lose this match, we can clearly say we are not title contenders. We're comfortably fighting for the top 4. We're not title contenders. If we go and win this match, it's only going to fuel that fire even more. Because, yeah, these are the type of matches that people who are in a title race, they would go and win. They would go and beat a team like Spurs at their place. I still don't think we're there. I still think you look at Sanchez. I think if you look at our back line, I think we do still lack a lot there. But I think we have enough to go to Southampton and batter them comfortably, because they're not one of the better teams, because they're lower on the table. They're not playing well. We have enough right now to take teams that are not playing well and sort of put them to the sword. It's something we didn't really have the ability to do the past 2 seasons. So that's a nice feeling to know that we're not going to go to these teams as charity FC and start giving them points. But you look at the games against teams like City, like Liverpool, like Arsenal, like Man U. Tottenham is kind of in a similar realm where these are all still Big Six sides. I know not all of them are playing like Big Six sides, but those are all tough games. So I don't see us going and rocking up to Tottenham and just easily wiping the floor with them. I think it's either going to be a very, very closely played draw, or one of the two teams are barely going to get their foot over the line. and just barely win in like a 2-1 type of win. So I don't think it's going to be convincing. I don't think it's going to be something that gets us all hyped and excited. If it does, then great. I'm going to be here absolutely dancing in the next video, 100%. I don't know what type of dance. I don't dance, so it's probably going to be ugly, but I will be dancing if we crush Tottenham. Trust me. Yeah, I think it's a very important game, though, and I think it's a game that, again, it does sort of put us in the conversation for maybe we are title contenders, but I still don't think we are just based on our squad. I do think what it does is it makes the top 4 a lot more comfortable for us this season, and I think that's kind of the big goal for us at the moment. I think how we've started, I think how we're playing right now, top 4 should be our goal. And I think if we don't make top 4, that'll probably be the most disappointing thing this season. I think second most disappointing thing at this point would probably be not winning the Conference League based on the quality we're seeing there. But I think those are 2 things that probably we should be fighting for at this point in the season. So we'll see what happens next. But with all that being said, those are my thoughts on the game today. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Chelsea reviews. Also check out the channel. We have a lot of TV show reviews as well as a couple Let's Plays on there. Check those out if you have time. But until next time, I hope you guys have a great day. I will talk to y'all later. Peace out.